The following video is very likely to anger anybody who cares about the subject matter. People who don't care about it are the ones I'm trying to communicate with because they need to know this information. And the ones who care about it, you need to know you've been duped. I'm going to read exactly what you'll probably find in the description after I do the video. We're going to be using the definition for complex multicellular organisms that are able to reproduce and have done so successfully by what is defined as sexual reproduction in the following way. 2 or more individuals can get together and produce offspring. I'm trying to make this very broad for a good reason. And they can't reproduce without 2 or more individuals contributing to the process. And the only criteria is it's successful because they're able to reproduce before they die. The progeny can do the same. This is a very basic definition. Why are you making it broad? Because if I don't make it broad, you're going to be angry that we aren't normal. I'm trying to make humans sound more normal. Out of all of these organisms, you can have, going by organisms, 2 sexes. You can have organisms that have both defined sexes within the same individual being that can reproduce and both do the same processes. You can have a single sex that does both processes, or just one does one and one does the other. They can do the same process and produce young that form from eggs. Some of them carry the eggs. Some of these same animals can change sex through their existence 2 or more times. And some have more than just 2 sexes, and not a few have a lot of gametes that would be qualifying them as having thousands of different sexes. Gametes. At that point, the word sex, gender, whether it's male or female, doesn't work. And the majority of them don't have male and female as just 2 sexes. They just don't. The majority of life forms, and I'm trying to make it to where it's not an overwhelming majority. I'm trying to include things that are pretty far out there to try to find more that have 2 sexes. I'm trying to make this to where it doesn't make you angry that you care about sex. But the majority of life on this planet proves it's not fucking needed to survive or reproduce. That's the end of the video. Don't watch the rest of it. Yeah, but I'm going to provide the links. I guess we'll do that. Or maybe I won't. I'm going to randomly cut and paste them in. And yeah. Now we're going to talk about human. Again. And by the way, that's based on looking very far in the past at written records of people discovering this, and then prehistory by digging it up from sources that are undeniably, unambiguously proving you are wrong. And I mean this in the most generic sense possible. If you came here with any presumption, it was bullshit before you showed up, and it still is. Now let's talk about just humans. Again, I tried to make it to where there were more examples of binary sex standard. All right, I did it as good as I could. The majority still didn't work when I included all the weirdos out there that actually have male and female. But that just reduced the number even more, it seems. No, I'm not kidding. Because the definition to include them began excluding it being important. From conception, all humans start off with identical anatomy. It's a template. We start off with a generic, this is what a human is at beginning stages. Then the work begins to do the plumbing and moving parts. We match a female's anatomy in every way you could look at and be able to see objectively. Till 8 weeks. Sex doesn't start at conception. Genetic sex, exclusively chromosomal, or is it genetic? Or is it the gene? We have DNA, genes, chromosomes. What about hormones? Hormone changes inside the womb, which are normally not able to happen at all for any reason other than what's going on, what I'm talking about, can affect this. All fetuses look female externally. Internally, they're identical, but they're not just male or female, but they're mostly female looking unless you're really, really looking closely. And gonads are up by the kidneys. That's the next anatomical characteristic. Gonads turn into either testicles or they turn into ovaries. Right? Buckle up. XX female and or XY male chromosomes, not genetics, not DNA, not genes, normally activate hormones and their opponents to cause or retard transformation of this undifferentiated tissue that can become either and or parts that are all in place to become one or the other or be swapped out. We start off with two internal accessory ducts. However, most of the diagrams show them as two on each side. Scientific literature avoiding the subject matter has made this very hard to look up. Let's muddle through. We have a diagram. Sexually indifferent stage. Biopotential gonads are up by the kidneys. Very close to them or attached to them are a set of tubes that would eventually, depending on hormones, become the tubes for the testicles. Behind them or near them are tubes that would eventually become the tubes for the ovaries to capture. Then there are the kidneys themselves with their own tubing. All of them meet at the same opening, and it's the opening for fecal material. It's called the cloaca. So we start off being hermaphroditic bird standards, just no wings. Yeah, it's called the cloaca. So anyway, at that point, the cloaca can do the following modification. All of that extra equipment, all of it, that isn't really supposed to be attached to your bowel, disconnects because the tubing starts doing this and forming a piece that comes loose. It becomes the bladder and urethra. This would be the first stage. Another stage after can form another pair just like this to form a vagina and uterus. Now, obviously, the ones coming from the kidneys form the urethra and bladder, and if it's going to form a male, it attaches also the tubing from what will become testes. If it's going to form instead, later on, a uterus, the tubing that would be near the ovaries attaches or forms from those tissues. Procedurally generated methods for building things by folding and twisting is, or plastico, that's the Greek word apparently, for molding and warping tissues is the process here. Human beings are very plastic. Now, immediately, again, finding people definitively saying it the way I am in mostly ordinary English is nearly impossible because doing so would anger both sides. Get out your little tiny jazz hands for Trump, because that's a Trumpism. At 16 weeks, the two tubes, or is it four, or just the tubes that are there, become mesonephric Wolffian ducts due to SRY gene expression in the Y chromosome producing an androgen. This androgen has the effect of changing the procedure that takes longer to interrupt it by forming just the bladder, attaching the tubing to the testes, and attaching it to after the bladder, and then not producing the next stage and not wasting the material and time on it to form a uterus and vagina. You might have noticed that if this isn't available, they will form any fucking way. And it's based on a gene, the SRY gene, that is normally on the Y chromosome, but can be other places apparently. Yes, I know, the arguments, tight cat-like, but that has happened, so it's real. Sorry. Also, you can have completely male individuals that look and are female in every way possible, except all the equipment's hooked up in the wrong spot, and instead of two ovaries, it's a couple of testes attached to the tubing. It looks normal until you actually take a look at it. Anyway, at 16 weeks, you can turn into a male. It takes longer, to 20 weeks of gestation, to become paramesonephric Mullerian ducts due to Oestrogen. Not estrogen, Oestrogen. Okay. Any one definition cannot perfectly cover every combination if there's more than two or one combination. An objective or evidence-based definition can still work and can be mostly covering everything, like let's say a binary male or female. But again, some people that are males in your life are actually genetically female in every way possible, and in some cases can reproduce. Not just survive, but reproduce. And some XY genetically male individuals exist that look not just feminine, they're hyper feminine. They are ridiculously feminized individuals. And they're genetically male in every damn way. The gene expression didn't work, the hormones didn't work, so let's list this all off. And some have reproduced. Yes, that actually happened. I just said reproduce successfully. I didn't say how. Let's move on. DNA, genes, chromosomes, which are visual in a microscope, hormones, which you can chemically test for, the anatomical differences, the biology, external view of it, internal view of it, the combination. Okay, DNA, genetics, chromosomes, hormones, internal and external. That's 6 binaries. If you want it to be binary, you're the one who wanted to do this. 16, 32, 64. That's 64 possible things, possible combinations. But you have to have a 1 in 64 chance of being exclusively male or exclusively female. It is a 1 in 64. It's a minority of the population that doesn't have at least one ambiguously male or female characteristic. Period, full stop. That's it. And now I'm going to throw another monkey wrench into it. Absorbed twins. Undifferentiated tissue, just deciding not to have any genetic data at all for male or female. We're being missing certain genes, but still having the X or Y, or in some individuals, both in different tissues. Not from absorbed twin, but because a virus got into the uterus and attacked the fetus as an embryo. But sex is determined at birth. Determined at conception. Genetically, it's supposed to be. And guess what? A large number of you, it isn't there. The genetics are missing for one or all of these. There are some people who are born literally omitting all of the data. They survive it, but they can't reproduce. Okay, so now we have, what if you get testicular cancer and have to remove your junk? What if you have to have a hysterectomy? Are you no longer male or female? Are you no longer a human? If you have reproduced, but you lose your genetic data that way. If you've been blasted with radiation, it can be hard to find the chromosomes because they're not absolutely required for life in some cases. Genetic damage can happen. Should you use all of those components for a 1 in 64 shot at winning the lottery, apparently, to be able to say, I'm purely male or I'm purely female? Should we have these definitions determine your role at birth for the rest of your life? Do not ignore reality, no matter how pleasant or miserable it makes you feel, or your opponent. Embrace reality. Stop making it a false dichotomy in a war you have with other people. Stop it. Preferably in the comment sections. Most of you, if you got tested for every one of these characteristics, from chromosomes to anatomy, would find out you have ambiguity. And yes, there are people who are able to reproduce as the male or female. They do exist now. We have about 4 examples. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Yes, you were wrong. So was everybody else, including me. Bye.